1923, the laws of physics didn't just break, they were incinerated. Standard combustion models cannot explain how 40,000 people were erased in minutes by a self-sustaining thermal vortex. We are diving into the terrifying science of an atmospheric anomaly that turned a city into a lethal, heat-warped wind tunnel. Tokyo, September 1st, 1923. The clock struck 11:58 a.m. People across the city were cooking lunch. Factories were running. Children were in school. Street vendors shouted through crowded roads. Then, the ground moved. Not a small tremor, a violent force so powerful that buildings twisted like paper. Roads cracked open. Trains derailed instantly. In less than 5 minutes, one of the deadliest disasters in human history began. But the earthquake itself was only the beginning, because what happened next shocked scientists for decades. A firestorm so powerful that it created its own wind, its own weather, and temperatures hot enough to melt steel. Some survivors said the sky turned black at noon. Others claimed people were lifted from the ground by tornado-like winds made entirely of fire. And in one horrifying location, 38,000 people vanished almost instantly. Even today, experts still study the event because the Great Kanto Firestorm behaved in ways that seemed to break the known laws of physics. This is the terrifying story of the 1923 Great Kanto Firestorm, the earthquake. The disaster began beneath Sagami Bay, near Japan. A massive undersea rupture released energy equal to hundreds of atomic bombs. The earthquake measured around magnitude 7.9. Tokyo and Yokohama were immediately devastated. Buildings collapsed everywhere. But Japan in 1923 had a dangerous weakness. Most homes were made from wood and paper, and almost every family was cooking lunch over open flames. The quake knocked over stoves across the entire region at the exact same moment. Thousands of fires ignited instantly. Normally, fires spread slowly. This time, they merged, and the weather made everything worse. A typhoon offshore pushed strong winds directly into the burning cities. Those winds fed the flames like oxygen into a furnace. Entire neighborhoods exploded into fire within minutes. People ran carrying children, water buckets, blankets, anything. But the fire moved faster than humans could run, when fire created its own weather. At first, survivors thought it was just a giant city fire. Then the impossible started happening. The heat became so intense that the air above Tokyo began rising at incredible speed. As hot air shot upward, colder air rushed inward from every direction. This created hurricane-force winds, not normal wind generated by the fire itself. Scientists later called it a firestorm, but even that word barely describes what happened. Temperatures may have exceeded 1,000 degrees Celsius in some areas. People hiding inside rivers were boiled alive. Some victims were found with clothing burned away, but bodies strangely untouched in certain areas. Evidence of heat patterns scientists struggled to explain. The flames jumped across canals and stone roads. Objects burst into flame without direct contact. The fire was no longer acting like ordinary combustion. It had become a self-sustaining monster, the dragon twisters. Then came the most terrifying phenomenon of all. Witnesses described giant spinning columns of fire rising into the sky. Fire tornadoes. Some were over 300 feet tall. Japanese survivors called them dragon twisters. These vortexes sucked in debris, wood, glass, roof tiles, and human beings. One survivor said, "The fire chased us like it was alive." The winds became so violent that people were thrown through the air. Entire carts flipped upside down. Burning debris rained from the sky miles away from the original fires. Scientists later discovered that the temperature differences between the firestorm and surrounding air created rotating vortices similar to tornado physics. But in 1923, nobody understood what they were seeing. To survivors, it looked like the apocalypse.
The horror of Rikugun Honjo, Hifukusho. Then came the deadliest moment. Thousands of people fled toward an open military clothing depot called Rikugun Honjo, Hifukusho. It seemed safe, a huge empty space away from burning buildings. Around 40,000 civilians gathered there, carrying their belongings. For a brief moment, they believed they survived. Then the winds changed. Fire from every direction surrounded the depot. The heat converged into the center, and suddenly, a massive fire whirl formed directly above the crowd. Witnesses described a gigantic spinning inferno descending from the sky. In minutes, approximately 38,000 people died. Some suffocated instantly as oxygen disappeared from the air. Others were incinerated by temperatures too extreme for escape. The entire area became a field of ash. Even rescue workers later struggled to understand how death happened so quickly. It remains one of the deadliest fire-related events ever recorded in human history. The aftermath. When the disaster finally ended, Tokyo looked like another planet. Over 100,000 people were dead. Millions lost homes. Entire districts vanished from the map. Smoke covered the sky for days. And beyond the destruction came something darker. Chaos spread through the ruined city. Rumors, panic, and violence erupted. Japan would never fully be the same again. But the memory that haunted survivors most was not the earthquake. It was the fire. The sound of the wind roaring like a monster. The sky glowing blood red. And the terrifying realization that nature had created a fire so powerful it seemed to ignore the normal rules of the world.
The 1923 Great Kanto Firestorm remains one of the most horrifying disasters ever witnessed. Not just because of the deaths, but because it revealed something terrifying about our world. Under the right conditions, heat, wind, and destruction can combine into a force beyond human control. A force that creates its own weather, its own storms, its own physics. And for the people trapped in Tokyo that day, it must have felt like the earth itself had turned against them.